welcome, to all the panelists here. And as we wait for maybe a couple of minutes, as our participants join, we are, having this program on India opportunities in the semiconductor packaging sector-wise perspective of an OSAT. OSAT, as we all know, it refers to the ATMP and the IC packaging. What we normally, we've been using this term in India, which is ATMP, and I believe OSAT is mildly, a little bit different from that, but it's a very big opportunity today. So I would also like to inform all the participants that Honorable Minister for Information Technology, Biotechnology, Skill Development, and IT from Karnataka, Dr. Ashwini Agarwal would be joining us in a little while, and he would be addressing us. He's a little busy right now, so we will introduce him as and when he joins. In the meantime, I would like to welcome all the panelists here, beginning with Dr. Ashwini Agarwal, our old colleague and a long time crusader in this industry. Dr. Ashwini is an industry veteran with 30 years of experience. He has worked with Hewlett Packard, and he is a well-known name in the industry now, and he's been supporting all the associations and the development of the semiconductor industry. Welcome, Dr. Ashwini. Then we have with us Dr. Raja Manikam, CEO of Tata OSAT. Dr. Manikam is another veteran of the industry who has also been an entrepreneur, starting TISOLVE in 2003. And he has always had a vision to create a leading productionization company, and delivering a high volume of manufactured products. I'm sure that now with his taking on this role as CEO of Tata OSAT, he will be able to do a lot for the Indian industry, and it is something that we all need now. So we look forward to your contribution, sir, to this industry and growth of the OSAT industry in the country. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Then we have Mr. Amrit Manwani, I think an even longer veteran of the industry, and who was my president earlier of ELCINA. Mr. Manwani is the past president of ELCINA and the CMD of Sahasra Group of the companies. Mr. Manwani is an engineering graduate from IIT Kanpur and an MBA from FMS Delhi. But much time has passed after that, sir, and you have been contributing to the industry through your role as a senior functionary in multinationals like L&T and General Electric for 20 years, and now since the last 20 years or so, you've been an entrepreneur, which is really I think a very exciting journey that you've been through. With now your foray into the EMS industry, in the PCB industry, and now your biggest venture, I guess, which is in the ATMP field, which is in Bhiwadi in the ELCINA cluster. So we are looking forward to your success in this area, because I think it will have a lot of medium and small companies coming on board. So I also thank EFY for organizing this, and for all my colleagues. With that, I would like to only make a few comments that ELCINA is the oldest association in the electronics sector since 1967, and our focus has always been on promoting the electronics manufacturing sector in the country with a focus on components. And we feel that semiconductor manufacturing is a very key now, and it's becoming even more and more important. With electronics becoming more intelligent, I think semiconductors, as you all know, has a great role to play. We believe also that more than a fab, we really need more of OSAT and ATMP in the country to be able to take a fab along with us. So we've been planning to get the fab in this country for the last many years now, but we don't really have any we have not been able to really get a big project going, I should say. So I feel that now with the OSAT industry coming in, I think it will become a reality in the very near future. With those words, I would like to hand over to Dr. Ashwini Agarwal, who's the anchor for this panel discussion and for this webinar, to please give his views on the future of the OSAT industry. Over to you, Dr. Ashwini. Thank you.
Thank you, Raju, for nice warm welcome and welcome everybody to this session, which is very topical and explores the opportunities that could emerge in the semiconductor sector with the various moves and trends that movers and shakers of this industry are driving. And it is my compliments to both ELCINA, the leading trade association for the electronics sector, and EFY, the leading trade magazine for the electronics industry for the last several decades, that they have assembled this list, this unique group of experts who are going to share their insights on what they are planning to do, which could actually be transformational for our electronics sector and really take it to the next heights. So it's a fact. It's a fact that our industry had been brutally crushed over the last early part of the millennium. But if you take a look at it, the situation now, thanks to the government's bold PLI and specs program, India's electronics industry has seen a clear resurgence. We have seen the end product EMS come up, and people can say that it is for the low value add mobiles or whatever. The fact is, it's a huge high revenue success. It is a possibility, therefore, for it to actually pull the electronics component industry up. And that is what is the catalytic reaction of creating that end industry that is taking place. As we actually look at our growth of the end products, it is a fact that it can only happen when the electronics industry grows. So the government is today aware of this latent need of the country of making the electronic component industry happen. And one of the natural parts of the electronic industry, electronic component industry that is under focus at this point of time is the semiconductor components. Okay, we have definitely a lot of work to do on the entire electronic component industry, but the semiconductor components had been a mirage for the last decade, that the government set its objective on really getting it operational in the country. There have been a lot of reasons for it. Our semiconductor aspirations have remained unsated despite all its opportunities, thanks primarily due to a bunch of naysayers and a set of uncommitted panhandlers. So really, it is when we say we can, as a nation, we will. If we say we will, we will. Okay, and if we have a set of committed people, we can actually see the actual reaction take place. Unfortunately, there were factors here which compromised our execution in the last round. I don't think it was a government policy. The government's been very clear right from day one. The programs that they have created, they have actually tried to tailor basis the inputs of the nations. And the industry inputs, once they were defined, it was actually for the industry to have risen to that. But as I said, there were other factors which actually compromised it. Today, we have some of the most enterprising states for electronics sector, electronics, semiconductor design, manufacturing ecosystem. We have Karnataka on the panel, and we have some of the most enterprising and iconic entrants to this particular area on the panel. And we will actually take their insights to really understand what will make this sector happen. So I did have some slides on it, and I can take the liberty of displaying it and taking you through some quick messages as a backgrounder till we have the minister in. And let me try and take you through that straight away. So, Raju, just confirm, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I can see. No, I can't see your screen. I can see you. I can see all the panelists.
You're not seeing the screen. Just hold up. Let me go back and see. I selected screen. I said share.
Yes, now we can see.
Now
I can see. Yeah, I can see now. Yes.
Great. So let me try and take you through some quick messages on the semiconductor sector so that you have a view of it. A quick view of Applied Materials, my corporation. It's the world's largest tool maker for the semiconductor and display sectors, close to about 50 years old, very closely involved with the Moore's Law, as you see in the semiconductor pedagogy. If you actually take a look at the corporation, today it has had its lifetime high of revenue of $23 billion. A quarter of its total employee base of 24,000 odd employees are based out of India, and its valuation has crossed the $140 billion. So just to give a perspective, that would be close to about 10 lakh crores Indian rupees that it has actually crossed. We make tools, and the sort of tools that we are talking of are really plant and equipment, the size of which you can see in the photograph on the lower left side. Imagine you can almost move a truck into an equipment display, and it is used for creating those nanostructures you see on chips, you see on displays, and that is what our real business is. We are a tool maker to the semiconductor industry and to the display industry. Literally, any chip you see in the world would have been touched by an applied tool. Its production cycle, any display in the world would have been touched by an applied tool in the in its production cycle. So whether it is an LED TV, LCD TV, smartphone, touchscreen, these are all touched by applied tools in the production cycle. So we don't make all the tools that go into a typical display or a typical semiconductor factory, but we do make some of the most critical part of the production line, and we have very high market shares in the tools we make. India has over 5,000 employees, bulk of them in Bangalore. We are operational in 5 cities, and our labs, they are DSI approved. And the sort of labs they are, if you actually walk into it, you'll find that they are like mini factories or actual factories, as I see in the Indian context, with a lot of robotics and advanced work happening out of India. We are at a threshold where the entire industry is spiraling to new heights. The most interesting industry trend that I know you would like to be aware of is that now machines are generating more data than humans. And this crossover took place 2 years back. So we are right now hurtling to a stage where they're saying that by end of this decade, 90% of the data generated would be by machines. So just machines themselves will be having a tenfold increase in the total, demand for data. And then there is a normal growth of the human data consumption, which itself is going to grow because there are tremendous unsatiated pockets of applications. And then you have the fact that as the data consumption grows, the computing needs will grow. And there's going to be a tremendous demand for silicon. And that's what has been a concern for a lot of policymakers, that we are at a stage where the semiconductor is becoming more than oil. It's actually going to grow in demand to such an extent that it can play havoc with the national economies. So playbook for the growth in this area for a company like ours has been to actually look at delivering performance, power, to managing the area and cost structures in a very time-bound manner, or what we call the PPAC area. Our company has a very complete, unique portfolio. We're driving the inflections in logic and in high-end computing and in more than more applications. These are not what I'm going to get into details on, but the fact is there are inflections in trailing nodes and packaging. And it's going to be a topic that I'll just cover with a couple of slides. We're living in very exciting times. The technology inflections are hitting sectors that are absolutely, which had nothing to do originally with IT and computers. So you have life sciences, a major growth opportunity. You have opportunities in automobiles. You have opportunities in logistics, and it's crazy the way the industry is evolving. It's literally the perfect storm of technologies hitting the world, and how each of us as economies handle it is going to determine how the growth is going to take place in the future. one of the biggest inflection elements that my company talks of is called ICATS, the IoT communications, automobile, power, and sensor market. And you will be hearing about it separately in the discussion also as I probe the panelists. And these technologies are going to create a huge demand from the edge as computing could be, as computing could evolve from the user itself at the user and also go on to the servers and do a lot of active inciting and modification of the problem handling for the individuals as time goes by. And yet, one of the biggest computing waves that is on the anvil is that in semiconductor packaging. And it is something which a lot of people don't really understand, but it is fundamental to the industry. You have over the years, polished each element of the supply chain to such an extent that there has been a separate set of value deliverers called the packaging specialists in semiconductors, the outsourced assembly testing houses who are taking the active wafers from the fabs, and they are packaging it to deliver value back into the system. And this is very simple because as time has evolved, the geometries have shrunk for the chips. The geometries for the PCBs have not shrunk to the same extent at the same pace. And there is therefore this need to get that active device created at that nano level to communicate to the real world in a very practical manner without losing out on the benefit of creating that device so small. So this entire issue of packaging has taken very dramatic evolution over the last decade and a half. And a single-minded focus has been take out the cost of the packaging, take out the cost of that interconnect, lower the cost per interconnect is the key driver for the packaging industry. And that has been one very interesting factor. The second, of course, is what we all understand as functionality. You must make sure that whatever is the end user application, we have to deliver that functionality back. And you have these interesting evolutions taking place at the same time. First of all, making sure that functionally you're delivering what the end customer or end industry is demanding, and then lower the cost.
We can't hear you, Ashwini. And the other panelist, Dr. Ashwini Agarwal.
Mr. Goyal, I think we've lost the connection from Mr. Ashwini Agarwal's side.
Okay. Right. So then what I would suggest is that, till he comes back and he joins us again, I would request that we can take the panel discussion forward. And is Mr. Manikam is on the call? Yes, sir, you are on the call. And Mr. Manwani is also on the call. So what I would, request is that, can we have, I can see Mr. Manwani there. Sir, can we have your views on the subject that we are discussing today? Because I think everybody would like to know what, the industry players who are actually in this field and who are, doing a deep dive, if I can say, in this sector, to kindly share your views about OSAT and ATMP and the opportunities that are now coming up. And then, after Mr. Manwani, we can request Mr. Raja Manikam to please join and to give his views. So over to you, Mr. Manwani. So can you please give your views first? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Raju. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, very, very clearly, sir. No problem.
Okay. Well, thank you for that kind introduction that you gave about me, and I thank ELCINA and EFI for giving this opportunity to share my experience and views. I will quickly spend just about 30 seconds giving my background in the sense that it is not as if that the thought of going into semiconductor packaging or memory packaging came overnight. It has been a slightly longer journey than that. I started, we started in 1991, which is about 30 years ago, manufacturing printed circuit boards. And when we stabilized, we moved forward in terms of forward integration to PCB assemblies, what is known as the EMS industry. And thereafter, about another decade later, we got into LED lights as a product, which we started to manufacture for India. But then, we moved to East Africa and Rwanda, where we make the LED lights. Sometimes in 2016, we started to make memory products like the USBs and SSDs for companies like Sony, HP, and PNY. And then in 2017, we had a JV with a Fortune 500 company from Taiwan called Mytech and Mytech Cinex. So along this journey, we realized that our value add needs to be increased, particularly if we have to remain a global player, particularly in the memories business that we were getting more and more into. So, in 2020, when the PLI scheme was announced, we started to look into, memory packaging. I see Ashwini has joined. Raju, would you want me to stop here or shall I continue?
No, so you please continue. So you
Then
please
I
continue.
will complete
After
my
you, then,
session. I was on the last slide, so we are absolutely on cue.
Yeah, so please continue.
Okay.
I've already handed over to Ashwini. Yeah.
So having said that, given the background that it was not an overnight call to get into semiconductor packaging, please, what I want to share with the other panelists and also to the audience that, this was a decision that we made at least a couple of years ago or more to get into semiconductor packaging. Now we are, although we are focusing on memory packaging, at least to begin with, but, I would, as Dr. Ashwini Agarwal had guided me, he said that, why don't you speak about the opportunities, the market, and the challenges and the solutions. So I would address one by one. The market, the opportunities are immense. As Dr. Ashwini Agarwal mentioned that the overall electronics product market for India is going to grow rapidly. And all the stakeholders, consider that this market will become a $300 billion market by 2025 or thereabouts. And the major segments which are growing very rapidly are 7 or 8 segments: mobile phones, IT hardware, LED lighting, and other power electronics devices, automotive, telecom, with not only telecom equipment, but with the introduction of 5G and 6G. And then, we are talking of, the affordability by the Indian large population in consumer electronics. We are seeing a huge growth in a lot of consumer electronics products like TVs, dishwashers, and other white goods, air conditioners, etc. The healthcare sector is growing because of, people are becoming more health conscious with pandemic hitting us. So there are more and more healthcare electronic products coming in, defense electronics. So all these products will require a huge amount of semiconductors. As again, I quote Dr. Ashwini Agarwal, he said that the market for semiconductors by 2030 would grow to about $1.2 trillion. And we are looking at the semiconductor market alone is for India is about 50 to $60 billion. Now, it may sound big, but if you really look at $1.2 trillion, that's only about 5 to 6% of the world demand for semiconductors. So that's not much, considering that we represent about 18% of the world population and only consuming 5 to 6% of semiconductors. We still have a long way to go. So, with that semiconductor demand showing signs of tremendous growth, certainly the country of India is looking at foundry for wafer foundry to fulfill this demand. But the vision for foundry and wafer fab is very well appreciated. But before it will take time for the fab factories to come in the country. But before we do that, downstream, we must have at the back end ecosystem for what are we going to do with the wafer? Are we just going to supply overseas? Then the question would come, why we have the wafer fab here? They are elsewhere in the world, closer to the packaging industry and so on and so forth. So it's very important that we have packaging industry establish a base in the country. And thanks to Tata Electronics taking the lead, we are very delighted to have Tata Electronics announce that they are going to set up a very large packaging semiconductor packaging industry. We have also made a humble beginning. We are setting up a 150 crore plant, a packaging plant in Bhiwadi in the ELCINA cluster in Rajasthan. And our focus initially would only be in the memory space. Now the memories are used in, as I mentioned earlier, in SSDs and other memory products like USBs and micro SDs. But also memories go in mobile phones. They go in all kind of IT hardware, data centers. So the market for memory packaging is huge in the country. And of course, with the geopolitical scenario that is panning out, India has a great potential to export, packaged memory and other semiconductor products, not only for the Indian market but also for the global market. As Ashwini mentioned to me, so what are the challenges? Why the packaging industry has not taken shape in the country? Let me highlight the challenges. Firstly, let me highlight the scenario. In the world today, in the memory space alone, there are about 150 companies worldwide in the memory packaging business, but there is none in India, despite the fact that we consume more than 10 to 15% of all memory demand in the country.
Excuse me. So Dr. Ashwini Narayan ji has entered the room, and so he is online. He is now connected to us.
So let me stop here. Let's hear out the Honorable Minister, and perhaps if I have an opportunity, I'll continue thereafter.
Yes.
Over to you, Raju.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, sir has joined, but he is on mute. Banwani sir, you can continue. Sir will listen, and then probably sir will join, and then.
I think let us continue. As and when he is ready to join.
Yes, he is already joined. He is
Yeah. You please stay in touch with his office. So
yes,
as
sir.
soon as he is ready to join and speak,
Sure.
then we will welcome him.
Sure.
Sir, kindly continue. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, there are about 150 units just in memory space alone, and India does not have even a single packaging unit. There is one company which had been active in the OSAT space in Chennai, but they had their own challenges, and therefore they have downsized their the capacity and their manufacturing range. We hope that they will again increase their capacity. There are other players, of course, like CDIL are also coming into this space, which is very welcome. But some of the challenges that we are facing in the recent past is because of the major semiconductor shortage worldwide. What has happened is that for packaging industry, particularly the equipment which is required for semiconductor packaging, the lead times have gone up very high. When we started to contact the vendors, they were quoting equipment deliveries anywhere between 12 to 16 weeks, and now it has become almost 40 to 50 weeks. So there are challenges in getting the equipment supply. The prices have increased by about 15 to 20%. So that's another challenge. We all know that the technology obsolescence or technology upgradation is always very rapid in this industry. So we have to keep up with the technology developments that are taking place. In this packaging industry, the main issue is relating to process stability. So that is a challenge because the yield is very important. Unless your yield is more than 95 to 99%, then you would have challenges in meeting the price goals. And of course, the last but not the least is that the capital requirements are rather large. As I said, we are starting in a very small way with 150 crore investment. And what we hear from the public domain is that Tatas are investing about 300 crores. Let me tell you that the largest packaging company in the world, ASE, they have an investment of about $8 to $9 billion. So that's the scale of investment that is required. So those are some of the challenges. But unless you recognize the challenges and you have the appetite to meet those challenges, you are not going to go anywhere. So despite the challenges.
So we'll continue our panel discussion. Honorable Minister has joined. When I thank you for all the thoughts that you've shared and the global perspective of the industry. As the minister has joined, Mr. Ashwini Agarwal, Honorable Minister for Higher Education, Information Technology, Biotechnology, Science and Technology, Skill Development for the state of Karnataka. So we will hear him first and welcome him. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you for joining this forum. And it is extremely kind of you. We know that you are all very busy and with so many things going on in the country and especially in Karnataka. I'm sure it is keeping you very busy. So my name is Raju Goyal. I work for the Electronic Industries Association of India, ELCINA. Thank you, sir. Very, very warm welcome. I would quickly like to also introduce our panelists here to you first. Before I introduce you, because people know you more, I think. So I'll just take 1 minute. Mr. Amrit Manwani, who was just speaking, he's the past president of ELCINA and he's the chairman of the Sahasra Group of Industry, which is into a wide variety of electronic products and also semiconductors. We have Mr. Raja Manikam with us. He is also a great veteran of the industry. He started a company Resolve in 2003 and now he's heading Tata OSAT, which is actually a company which we are all looking forward to for doing a lot in the electronic space in the country. We have Dr. Ashwini Agarwal with us, who is also another veteran from Hewlett Packard, and now he's been with Applied Materials, which is a company that manufactures equipment for semiconductor manufacturing. Very, very high tech and another iconic company. I think started in 1967, which is the same year when ELCINA started. So that is something that we share with Applied. Of course, sir, we can see Mr. Pankaj Gulati also, though he's not an active panelist, but he's also a veteran from the semiconductor industry. And he's from CDIL, and he's been serving this industry for the last 40 years. So with those few short introductions, I would like to welcome you, sir. Once again, and also a short introduction, if I may. Dr. Ashwini Agarwal is an Indian politician and was inducted as the cabinet minister in Karnataka in August 2021 this year. He is a member of the Karnataka Legislative Assembly representing the Malleshwaram constituency in Bangalore. He also served as the 10th Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, being a multifaceted personality and a firm believer in technology. So we also know that you are an MBBS doctor. So if you have any healthcare problems, you are the best person to go to in Karnataka. And that's very, very interesting fact about you, sir. So with that short introduction, I would like to, hand over to you to share, please share your views with us. We have, I think, about 500 to 600 people watching us right now. All participants from the industry, and I think it will be very interesting for all of us to hear you. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, good morning to each one of you. ELCINA Webinar, Indian Opportunities in Semiconductor Packing, sector-wise perspective of an OSAT is very relevant topic and most important area. Entire country has been looking in this direction, working in this direction for the very establishment of the semiconductor manufacturing, and as well as an immediate initiative has rightly been pointed out by ELCINA to immediately encourage the semiconductor packing, wafer level packing, from the panel level packing to wafer level packing needs to be encouraged, and there's an immediate initiative which can be taken. So on this occasion, what has been initiated by the industry now been renamed as the Electronic Association of India. I would like to recognize the presence, acknowledge the presence of Raju Goyal ji, Ashwini Agarwal ji, Raja Manikam, Amrit ji, Pankaj Gulati, and all other dignitaries. We appreciate your contribution as a professionals, as an industrialist, as an entrepreneur, taking the lead and building a self-reliant India with all of your learnings and commitment. All of you have made a huge difference. Now India can look up and be a strong India because of all of your efforts and commitment for building of the nation. It's really remarkable and appreciable. Based on this foundation, we are trying to look everywhere and send a strong signal that Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister should become a reality, and it needs to be immediately implemented. So just not a mere statement, how this can be done is the most important. Probably in this direction, the government of India came out with an PLI scheme. So in addition to that PLI scheme, government of Karnataka came out with a special incentives for electronics. And we had earmarked more than 2,000 crores for the next 5 years as in a subsidy. Additionally, from the government of Karnataka, 2,000 crores straight away. Now, if you see the initiative after announcing of the ESDM policy, probably you are the best in the entire country. After announcement, you could see the kind of response. Almost we are the fund what is been earmarked is getting exhausted in a very fast pace, more than what was planned for 5 years. Probably almost 30-40% money has been already consumed or spent. Expenditure has been done in our special initiative program, incentive program, and we are getting very good positive response. Many companies have been coming forward. Probably we had many suggestions with regard to what topic has been taken up by the ELCINA. We were asked to encourage the semiconductor packing. Definitely we look forward and encourage, sir. And we look forward to whatever required support to be done from the state of Karnataka. That our one state you can always look up, since all of you know very well, the 70% of the 64% of the chip designing happens here. The most leading companies are having presence here. And we have been consistent as a state government, irrespective of party, irrespective of government. State of Karnataka has been consistent and it has been very industry friendly. The similar cannot be seen. They invite early, they invite in the beginning, later on they show their colors. They show the colors in different circumstances. They put into a lot of difficulty. But in state of Karnataka, by the experience of any industrialist, that has not been the senior union. And we are looking forward, and more so we have already reached out to the government of India by providing 200 acres of land close to the international airport of Bangalore. Whoever is going to establish the semiconductor manufacturing unit, we are willing to provide the land as well as the water and land, whatever is being required for this manufacturing, as well as in many other areas. We are willing to extend this invitation. Make in Karnataka, on the lines of Make in India, we have come out with a Make in Karnataka. Whatever required manpower, skilled manpower, you will believe it or not, we have upgraded all our ITI institution, Polytechnic, GTTCs, KGTTI. We have a manpower. We have been aligned with the Industry 4.0 in a very big way with regard to the particularly the latest manufacturing practices with regard to the AI, IoT, AML, data analytics, robotics, automation. All these possible trainings is being provided to each and every person in the state of Karnataka, and we can cater to the not only requirement of our state, we can cater to the requirement of the entire country and the world. That is how we have been working in that direction. Completely, we have revamped the entire system, and even the higher education we have completely revamped. We can assure you, state of Karnataka will be the best place, and we are forward-looking. And this is nothing but India. Karnataka is nothing but India. This is the most cosmopolitan, diverse, very friendly. Climate is very friendly, very conducive climate. All good reasons, sir. And the ecosystem also is very well built. And we look forward to any kind of suggestion from your side. What more can be done? We'll be happy to do that. We want our system to be the best place, and we'll work along with you. And we need to take it forward. And as our senior man Amrit Manwani was mentioning, since the technology, particularly in semiconductor, it gets obsolete very rapidly. We need to encash, and since the consumption has been increasing, many of the sector specific in the sector, each sector, the consumption has been increasing. Now we have reached a time where the whatever has been manufactured can be consumed in India itself, in all possible sectors, from agriculture to every possible sector, power, telecom, defense, consumer electronics, all possible area. And we'll extend all the cooperation, and you can send us whatever. We have been working closely with ISA and all possible organization here in the state of Karnataka, and we have set up KDM. All those things have been mentioned. Beyond Bangalore, we want to have a uniform growth. Beyond Bangalore also, we've been encouraging, giving a lot of incentives. So with engineering, R&D policy, ESG policy, many more policies we are coming out. And industry is part of the government. Industry is not outside the government. Industry is part of the government, and we want to see. And Karnataka will be known for specifically for electronics, for IT, BT, science and technology. With God's blessing, we have been doing extremely well. We want to further grow and become the world's number one. World number one. We want to be the world number one in this direction. I will make all possible efforts with all the commitment and dedication. I can assure you. I can guarantee you, we are committed and dedicated. That is the main important. And the Honorable Chief Minister is very clear. He himself is an engineer. He is also very clear. He is forward-looking, and he wants all of your support. Please do come whenever you want to visit us. Please do come, and we'll facilitate and ensure this will be the best place. Namaskar for giving me this opportunity. I thank all of you, and I wish all of you all the best. The great reformers, the great builders of India. Your contribution, I know, as a minister of this department, what kind of changes is happening in society. The most promising and forward-looking for any citizen of the country, for our country, is through the electronics. And without electronics, there's no software. Without electronics, there's no product. So it starts with electronics. Namaskar, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Kannada. Sir, yours is mute, sir. Raju Goyal, sir, yours is mute.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sorry. Ashwini, would you like to thank the minister or ask anything? Dr. Ashwini? Okay. So we thank you, from, all our this thing, and that, you've been very kind. We all know that, Karnataka is the leading state in not only, software, also in hardware. And we've been to all the DRDO labs, all the, so many of, your defense establishments, which
It
are all,
started with electronics only, sir.
Yes, I know, sir. They're all, 90% of that is all electronics only. And it is the hub of, so much, technology and knowledge which has been created for the country. It all comes from, Karnataka. Mr. Raja Manikam, sir, you are, I think, now working, while you've been mainly in, Chennai and Tamil Nadu, but I think now you're working very actively in, Karnataka. Maybe you have something to, to ask or to
Thank you,
request
Honorable
from Mr.
Minister,
Ashwath
sir.
Narayan,
This is
Honorable
Dr. Ashwini
Minister.
Agarwal.
If there's something you
You
would like.
know, when I had started,
I think we've lost Ashwini again. I think he was trying to say something. I think the Wi-Fi in Delhi is not as good as it is in Bangalore. Maybe we need to improve further. Mr. Raja Manikam, would you like to say something, because you are now working so much in Karnataka?
Yes, yes. I don't know. I think my video has been stopped by the host.
Okay, no problem, sir. We can hear you very well.
Okay.
You will please continue,
I
because
don't know who's the host, but they stopped my video. So anyway, thank you, Sir Minister. I founded TESOG in Karnataka, and in 2004, and in Electronic City, and later on in 2016, I sold it to the Hero Group. I only have very positive feedback for you, sir. It's been a wonderful experience working with STPI and KIDB and so on. People always have this thing about it's very difficult to do things in India. So they, especially for people like me who've been living outside of India for many years, there is a perspective that is very difficult. And I keep telling them, look, I'm just an ordinary person, and KIDB in 2003 recognized that, TESOG, which was into actually a chip testing and so on, which was different from the software. They recognized it and they said that, this is a missing link, right? Because everybody was doing software and chip design. But this was, when we did physical packages, physical silicon we were going to do. So they recognized that as, a missing link, and I was given, land in Electronic City and so on. So I have nothing but, positive experience in Bangalore and in Karnataka. So thank you for all that effort. And I preach this to, all these people who are overseas, because we all went in the 70s and 80s and maybe in the 90s, right? Senior people like me. So we carry the old baggage of what India was, right? What India is today, as the minister said, right? They want to bring in, there is a lot more, pull to bring stuff, right? It's not a push from us or, pushing us away or so. And so thank you, sir. I think certainly, Karnataka is one of the leading states for anything to do with semiconductor.
Sir,
Thank all the senior members.
Sir, if with your permission, Honorable Minister, I would like to just make a suggestion or request your comments
Please.
one point that comes to my mind. Sir, Karnataka has been leading in hardware design. There's a huge and a very robust ecosystem for hardware designing in all of Karnataka. And now that we are talking about packaging of semiconductors, sir, there is a great need to set up a test center or a common facility center specifically related to semiconductor packaging, some kind of a center of excellence. What are your views on this, sir? And would you consider setting up a center of excellence in semiconductor packaging in Karnataka, particularly, perhaps either at IISc Bangalore or some other place, because, all these institutions that are there in Karnataka, they are very good at hardware design. And therefore, if we had this packaging facility center, that would go a long way. And also, sir, the test tools that are required for testing the semiconductor after it is packaged, these test tools are by and large designed within India. but these belong to multinationals and they take away those test tools and sell at probably 10x the price. But if we had that capability here, that the test tool facility here in the country, particularly in Karnataka, it will go a long way. Say your views on this.
Sir, with regard to this, already we have set up one unit in Mysore city, sir. But we'll do it, we'll extend it wherever required. Definitely, that's excellent value addition should be done. We need to ensure that the more and more value our entrepreneurs should be able to get it. And definitely, we look forward for the establishment, sir. Common facilities is the way forward to bring down the cost and ensure the cost facilitation and for more prosperity and more flourishing of the industry. Definitely, we take up your suggestion and implement, sir. Definitely, we'll work in that direction.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I take the. I have to leave because I'm in the midst of the campaigning for the local, for the legislative council. I take the break, sir. Last day, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Okay, please. Dr. Ashwini has lost the IT connection. He's not been able to join, but he's trying. So I guess he will come back in a few minutes as soon as he gets his internet connection back. I think it's a tough time for him because he's got this medical issue in the family and he's been, out of his office and out of home. So it's kind of difficult, but we appreciate that. We got to hear the minister, and I think we all know that Karnataka is a great place for IT and for electronics, and of course it leads the country in this, in that area. So, and we thank him for being with us and for joining us, and we will stay in touch with him, and we'll all be in Bangalore on the 16th, 17th, 18th for the Electronica. So we hope to see him there, and I believe he's also coming to the Electronica India show, of which ELCINA is a partner, and we hope to see him there. So we've heard Mr. Amrit Banwani and his views. Of course, they got interrupted a little bit in between, so we are sorry for that again. But and we've also not been able to get Dr. Ashwini on the call, unfortunately, because he lost internet connection. But so we have now we have Mr. Raja Manikam, sir. We were all looking forward to hearing actually the most from you, and I'm sure all the participants are very keen to hear you. So we will now give you, uninterrupted time, barring, the vagaries of the internet. So, I hope that, we now hear from you in detail, sir. Thank you very much. Your views on this, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Raju Goyal. I believe ELCINA is primarily association of a lot more small and medium-sized companies, right? And mostly Indian companies. Am I correct?
Yes, most of the country, we are basically, an association which started as a component industries association.
Yeah.
Of course, now we have, spread our wings a little bit, and we also cater to all the electronics manufacturing, companies, mainly the EMS companies, and also the semiconductor manufacturers. We don't have any semiconductor design companies in our fold.
It's more
but the manufacturing companies are there.
Okay. So good.
And you are right, sir. I mean, about 80% are MSME.
Yeah. So I salute all of you because being in this industry, being a small and medium size, and competing, because this is a very, very tough industry where the margins are very tight and you have global competition really. Especially, the very cheap goods coming from China and so on. So I salute all of you. I'm also a small company guy. I used to work in a large company, but I ventured and started my own company, and I can understand the problems that an SME will have. So having said that,
and the pain and the problem.
The pain. Right, so I've experienced the pain with you, so I'm one of you. So I just wanted to, even though I come under this Tata brand, Tata is about 6 months since I've joined Tata, but I'll tell you why Tata is also important, in the whole scheme of things, in my view. So let me start with this. I think we all have heard about this, and I guess the reason why we're having this forum is that there is a huge opportunity, right? There's a huge opportunity. Semiconductor is about 450 billion to $500 billion, and it's going to go to 700, $800 billion in the next 5 to 8 years or so. So it's doubling, tripling, whatever it means, right? But all it means is it's a huge growth area. So is there opportunities for India? When within India, what is it, right? Is it only opportunities for the large companies, the medium companies, small companies, right? So I think, let me spend some time trying to explain my view of how I see this vision playing out, right? So number one is, so I'll give a few myths of this industry, right? And by the way, I'm not a wafer fab guy. My personal experience is I started as a test engineer with Texas Instruments. Then I worked at Fairchild and National Semiconductor in different positions, including business side of things, as involved design. I've also actually worked in a factory also, right? I worked in Texas Instruments factory. I worked in the Fairchild factory. I mean, work meaning you're not just visiting the factory, but actually sitting in the factory for years and working in the factory along with the engineers and technicians and operators. And so I have that personal experience as well. And on the business side as well, I used to run product lines for telecom products, and I used to come to CDOT in the mid-90s to design some of national semiconductor chips. When CDOT was, at that time, was just opening up, and our backbone, telecom backbone, was getting built. So I do have a little bit of a wide experience, and especially on the manufacturing as well, so which is kind of unique. So the few myths, right? Number one myth is manufacturing of semiconductor needs a market, right? It really is a myth, right? If you look at where the semiconductors are manufactured, whether it's fab or the post-fab OSATs, it's got nothing to do with the market. The world's largest market of consumption is in the US, but yet there is hardly any manufacturing in the US. Now the government, the US government is trying to pull, right? Giving incentives and all that for strategic reasons as well as, political reasons and so on. But so that's a myth, right? Majority of them are actually manufactured in the little area between Taiwan, Korea, and then the back end is done in Philippines, not so much Philippines, but Malaysia, Singapore, and so on. None of them, and now Vietnam. Vietnam is becoming big as well. But none of them have huge markets, right? And China market is basically, again, an export market, right? Of course, they consume, but they also export a lot, right? Even though in terms of numbers, they say it's consumed, but really majority of it get exported as well. So number one myth is, you don't need to have the market in order to play in this business, right? So sometimes, we beat ourselves up, right? Because when somebody asks you, right, where is the market? Show me the customer. We always look at, the Indian customer. The point that I'm trying to raise is the narrative needs to change, saying that we are going to be global suppliers. And it could be a small company, medium-sized company, a large company, doesn't matter, right? You can be making a small frame that goes into a test equipment. But you'll probably make thousands of them, right? As a small business, right? So first of all, the thought should be that whatever we do, if somebody asks us, right, where is the market? Where show me where's the customer? Where is it? And we said, look, we're going to be global. So that's number one. Number two is the other myth is we need to have a fab in order to do the back end or in order to do anything else, right? We always need a fab. Again, you look at countries, right? Wafers are probably the easiest thing to get shipped all over the world. It's very light, it's compact, right? You can have, millions of die in a small box like this, right? Literally, you have millions of units in a box like this, right? If you're doing, a simple analog device, right? Analog type of chips, right? Very tiny. In an 8-inch wafer, you can have 25,000 of them in one wafer, right? And they're very, very light. They're very thin and very light, right? I mean, weight is not the issue in our business, right? So not necessarily that wafers get done in Taiwan and the same wafer gets packaged in Taiwan, tested and shipped out of Taiwan. The wafer, can get shipped to Singapore, can get shipped to Malaysia, can be shipped to Philippines, anywhere in the world, and then get assembled, right, somewhere, and then get shipped somewhere else. So that's a second myth, right? You don't need a fab in order to be in this business as well. And then the third thing is, we always talk about, whenever we talk about fab, we always say it's a $10 billion, and the number keeps increasing all the time, right? Depending on who you ask, right? It's 1 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion, somebody will say 20 billion. And it is probably true to some extent. It is actually true if you are going to play in that segment, right? But if you again, right, look at the amount of, whether you take number of wafers that comes out in a month that serves the entire world, or you take it in terms of, packaged parts, right? Majority of the units, right, actually do not require this 5, 7, 3 nanometer type of fab. Majority doesn't. Right? Majority has in the maybe probably 28 nanometer and above, right? Probably even in the 45, 65. I don't know. I mean, it just keeps. So there is plenty of business here, right? And those fabs are not in the $10 billion range. Depending again, what you do, it could be anywhere from $500 million to $1 billion or so, right? And then you have specialized fab as well, right? You can have a silicon carbide fab. I mean, there's, I believe in Gujarat, right? There is a Ratan Shah or somebody, who's there forever, right? Those are all like gems, I think, waiting to be exposed in my mind. So you have those kind of, and those are also now becoming mainstream, right? Whether you take silicon carbide or GaN and so on. And those are much, the wafers are small. The kind of circuit that goes into are different. They're very, simple circuits, but they have, a very unique characteristics, right? In terms of, band gap and so on. So you can be using it for high voltage and all. And they are in the 20, 30, 40 million, $50 million range, right? So the myth again is, like if you want to get into this, right, you got to put huge capital, right? And I'm not saying, it's there's zero capital, but there is some capital. And as a MSME, medium and small size company, you pick which area that you want to play in, right? And become, think about it as, I'm going to become a dominant player in that one small thing, right? So if you look at the ecosystem, whether it's in Taiwan or Korea and so on, there are hundreds and thousands of companies supporting this, the TSMCs and UMC and ASE and all these kind of companies, or Samsung in Korea. There are hundreds and thousands of companies who support. They're not big, right? They're mom and pop, family type of business, and so on. So, but always think global, right? I think that's, in my view, whenever we think about supplying to India and looking for Indian customers and so on, that's where I think, we run into a wall. So I think, if you look at these, I just wanted to frame you, where things are. I think Ashwini talked about packaging and, outsourced packaging. So now I believe, India missed the boat. Right? India missed the boat in the sense, all these multinationals move to Asia, right? Whether it's a TI or NXP or ST Micro and all these guys, every company can think of, right? Intel, all these people move their back-end operations, which is the packaging and test, their own, for their own, to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and all this. In the 70s, they started, 80s, they started to ramp up. And then they kind of, keep on increasing. And then the outsource market started coming up in the late 80s, 90s. And really in the 2000s and so on, it started to pick up, right? So mostly today, right, especially on the packaging and test part of it is, primarily outsourced, right? What I mean is, most of these big companies don't do it internally. So they keep their investment into product development and other things. and they leave this to, to other companies, like they call it the OSATs. So I think, there's a huge opportunity there. Now, when I say we missed the boat, now we are getting into this now, right? 2021, 2022. We need not go into the same business engagement model, right? We have some strengths in India, right? Certainly our strength is in engineering, right? We are very innovative, we do a lot of engineering. And we can scale the engineering as well, right? We can do a lot of customized work, right? If you look at all the other countries that already are in the OSAT business, what is their strength and what is their weakness, right? They have access to capital, right? They have a lot of, and they have access to cheap capital, right? They are talking about 2-3%, whereas in India, we're talking about 10-12%, right? Cost of capital is very, very high for us. They get cheap capital. They have a lot of, government, help in that sense, right? Helping all these smaller companies and so forth. And they are who they are because they didn't have the kind of breadth of engineering or the scalability in engineering, right? So they ended up, for them to survive, they have to invest capital, right? So, there in a business, there are only two things, right? You have capital and you've got labor, right? Right? So in our case, right, we had very talented labor, high-skilled labor, low-skilled labor. We had plenty of those. So we made use of that and we created the IT companies of the world and, the BPOs of the world and so on, right? We're world-class in that, right? So the labor part of it. But because, we did really well in this, we are very shy about, or, we don't, we can get away with this, so why put capital, right? So we never take a risk on the capital side of things, right? So because this is a proven success. Now, whereas if you look at the other countries, they didn't have this, they didn't have the labor piece of it. So they had to put capital in order to build their businesses, right? And that's why, if you see, right, China grew by investing capital, right? They didn't have any strength, as far as language goes, or if you look at other aspects. Of course, they showed the market. And one thing good they did was they did not allow foreign companies to come and dominate in their, so they had homegrown companies, right? That's why there is no Google in China. there is no Facebook in China. There, all these companies, but then they're thriving in India, right? Because we were very open to this, right? And even in the chip side of things, right? There was always a little bit of a barrier. Now, we always talk about, China when you say, what are the chips they do. Now, if you take a catalog, right? We take a TI catalog type of product. China probably has almost every catalog product in there been done by some company in China, right? Maybe 100 companies. They'll do, particular segments. Somebody will do op-amp, somebody will do AC/DC, somebody will do battery management, things like that, right? There are hundreds of companies like this. And there are fabs that can support that as well, right? This fab like Grace and so on. We never hear so much about it, but actually they already have all of those things, right? So, and those things, are done by smaller companies, right? They're not very large companies. They just focus on one or two things. They have some very good designers, who are really very good at, some particular transistor that they can make, and they go and, and so for every equivalent TI product, I'm sure there is a Chinese equivalent, right? So the reason why I'm bringing up all of this is there are many segments that you can play in. There is the other segment is obviously on the equipment. Again, the barrier to entry in the equipment is very high, but at the same time, right, there are things that you can make for the bigger equipments, right? So, for example, right, I think Ashwini also talked about that, right? They make multi-million-dollar type of big equipment, but there's so many things that goes into it, right, which can be again done by, and this is where I think our peripheral industries, we are used to it, right? I went to school in Trichy, in BHEL, And BHEL had a whole, ancillary industries that they supported. And they're very, very successful, right? BHEL actually taught them how to do it, and then they built it, for them. And there's, all these little companies thrive, right? I have my own personal relatives who, did very well in this, right? So I think there could be, Raju Goyal and Ashwini, maybe one of the suggestions that can come up is, with these companies like, when we incentivize companies like AMAT or, Intels of the world, right? Maybe there should be some discussions on how they can help this ecosystem, what they can do while the government incentivizes them as well. Because from what my experience in Singapore, for example, Singapore EDB Economic Development Board does a lot of hand-holding with this, large companies, but they also are very careful about growing some companies and talent, within the country as well. So one of the reasons, I'm sure, Ashwini knows more about this. Applied is very big in Singapore, but I'm sure there are a lot of peripheral industries that are supporting Applied as well, right? So EDB makes sure that, there is a connect to this, right? We give you some, you create something for us. And they're very, very, their follow-up is excellent. That's right. Maybe that's something that, the government, whether it's a state government or, because I see, everybody is going to the government and say, give me this, give me that, give me cheap money, give me grant, give me water, give me this, right? But then, what do we get from the industry other than, okay, yeah, we'll create some jobs and stuff like that. So I think we need to be a little bit more savvy about this, right? We give a PLI scheme, for example, what is it that those guys are going to do for us, right? And, make it very genuine and something measurable so that, EDB, I've worked with EDB in Singapore. If they give you money for certain things, they have a whole list of, returns that they're going to get, right? Not necessarily in terms of financial returns, but, very carefully worded, enforceable. Right? So maybe those are some of the things that, the government can think about. So I think, I've told you about the myths, I told you about the, opportunities. So I'll just tell you about, Raju Goyal, is it okay if I continue or should I?
We have till 12:30, so we have another 15 minutes, and after you maybe Mr. Manwani would like to share some thoughts, and maybe you both can exchange some thoughts, and that's it. That's about it.
Amrit, is it okay if I take 5 more minutes?
Please go ahead. It's very nice to hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amrit. I salute you as well. You are a survivor.
Thank you, sir.
I was going to talk to you about where Tata is coming in this is, right? A few years ago, right? Even Tata, because I wanted to bring manufacturing to India. And I approached all these big companies, be it Reliance and Tata's and all these guys, but they were not ready, right? They were not, everybody looked at it purely from a financial return standpoint. Right? If you do an ROI for manufacturing, right? You guys know this better. You guys are in manufacturing, right? Return on investment compared to a service company, a software service company, is much, much better any day as compared to a manufacturing company, right? So people don't want to, invest in manufacturing because if they can make it here, why not? Right? So this has been, I always say this is a curse for India in that sense, right? Because we can always make money in a service company. So, people don't want to do the hard part of it. So I think there's a change of opinion and a change of mind in a lot of cases. One is the opportunity because of these supply chain issues between, and political issue. So there's a diversification of supply chain. There's active diversification. right? Active diversification. Companies are actually very seriously looking at getting out of that zone, right? And where are they going to go, right? So we need to be very smart about representing very clearly any an opportunity. Right? So for example, I can give you ASC is the largest OSAT in the world. They're about a $12 billion company. I know the entire history about ASC, where they started, how they started, who started, right? Started from nothing in the mid 80s, right? And he wasn't even a techie guy who started the company. And then how he grew it to this $12 billion type of company. Recently, they have 4 factories in China, which they had to sell to the Chinese fund and Chinese company, and they had to basically give it up, right? So there is a lot of political reasons going on and so on. So it's an opportunity, right? The problem for somebody is always an opportunity for us. So I think one thing is, again, as an industry association, get really hooked up on how we go and talk to these guys. Not only just the Intels and AMATs of the world, right? There's many smaller companies that are playing this, their product, material, equipment. Somebody's just making bulbs, for example, right? Or so some chemicals. I mean, there is a whole bunch of this, right? Pick and choose, right, where your particular company strength is, right? If your founder is comes from a chemical background, right? He's got chemistry behind it. That might be an area, right? Ashwini, you want to say something, or? No, you
are on mute, Ashwini.
I'm saying you are putting forward such brilliant points and to my heart, to my company's heart. So, actually, I would like to share with the audience that Applied has proposed to the government of Karnataka and to central government that we could be an anchor account that can create ancillaries for our procurement requirements. And we buy $3 billion worth of outsourced specialized equipment and parts from Asia Pacific. India could actually be a potential source for at least 1,000 to 2,000 crore worth of material in the near future. So there are companies who took that initiative. As we went around looking for such vendors, we discovered gems, and we discovered gems in ceramics, we discovered gems in specialized assembly components. Some of these are now becoming specs, applicants, and there will be a supply chain for our equipment that we would generate out of India as well. Hopefully it will grow. So back to you, because today we want to hear you, Raja, you and Mr. Manwani.
Okay. So I guess, so there, there are opportunities for each of these segments, right? Maybe perhaps one thought is, have a big, say Applied, right? Or let's say Tata, let's say you take Applied. And so now, maybe the government can work on how we can support that ecosystem to, so that Applied becomes successful in India, right? I mean, if you ask me, right, my vision would be, hopefully one day, right, we will get the integration of this very large equipment done in India, right? And a lot of the parts can be done in India, and it's not just for charity or something like that, right? It's the right thing to do because you have the talent, you have the deep talent. If you look at, most of these countries, right, they run out of, engineering talent very quickly. And by nature, we are very innovative people, right? So, and of course, right, the other big advantage we have is that the diaspora, right? We have so many of the Indians in this field, right? Whether it's equipment making or manufacturing or design, right? We just have our guys everywhere, right? So you can't say that, as far as Taiwanese goes, this Maurice Chang, known as the founder of TSMC and so on, and known as the father of electronics in Taiwan, right? When he went to Taiwan, can you imagine how many Taiwanese were in the fab, working in the fab? You could probably count in the number in your fingers, right? Because it's a small country, and how many of them would have been working in a fab? I'm talking about 70s or 80s, right? But we have a lot of our people actually working in the factories, working and all that. So I think we have a huge advantage, right? Very huge advantage. So I would say, I think let's maybe we focus on how to do this, right? Maybe, there could be, like Ashwini is very involved. Maybe you can come up with a playbook on how this can be done with the right incentives from the government for both the smaller industries that are going to support the applieds of the world, right? So applied can get some maybe some special, on top of whatever, they're giving today, maybe something special, which will benefit these guys, in return as well, right? So it's not just, creating job, but actually creating companies, right? So with that, I think I spoke too much. Please, Manwani, go ahead. You have a lot more experience than I am. Please go ahead.
No, I mean, it was great to hear you, Raja. Raju, how do you want to structure the rest of it? Do you want me to speak a little bit, or Ashwini, or whatever?
Okay, I'll just try and take take a few minutes onto this. I'll just raise the question. So right now, the key question that I have to ask is, what is the end market that you're going after, and what is the value proposition you want to create? So that's a question first to you, Mr. Manwani, because you haven't had an opportunity so far, and then we'll ask that to Raja also. What is the end market?
Yeah, clearly, Ashwini, as I have repeatedly said on various forums, and as Raja also rightly mentioned, create niche markets for yourself, and develop your expertise in that segment. And we are only focused on memories. And in fact, going even further, we would focus only on NOR and NAND flash memories.
Brilliant. So it's a consumer market you're going after?
Not really. We are going for majorly a B2B market, because the memories would go into mobile phones, they would go into IT hardware. So it's not really direct business to consumer market, but it will be B2B, and perhaps a little bit even B2G, business to government.
Okay, so the end market may be consumer, but for you it is definitely B2B.
Yes.
Okay, and what about you, Raja? What is the end market that you are foreseeing your company will be, say, 2 years down the line?
So we have a bigger vision, honestly, and we want to invest and be a player, a significant player in the whole semiconductor market. Our vision, I would say, at least my piece of it is in the OSAT. We're going to build the OSAT industry. We're quoting, the usual guys, the big companies, to supply them, packaging and so on. And like you said, right, we are planning to do advanced packaging, because that again will be a lot more capital. We'll probably use a lot of your equipment as well. So I think, that to me, hopefully will open the floodgates. Because we've been talking about this, nothing on the ground yet. Even today, nothing on the ground, including Tata. So so I think 2 years from now, the way I see it is, we would have established ourselves. I think, Tata will break the ground on this. And there will be lots of opportunities, because of this, right? There'll be a pool, I think, right? Where, and the time is right. For other companies would say, okay, can I do joint venture with somebody? I'm making this and that. So I think it has to be both ways. I think it's a good opportunity for companies in ELCINA and so on to look for, chase these guys, right? Could be Japanese, could be this, could be that. So pick the market that they want, and then they go and work with us. We ourselves, right? I think from a Tata perspective, we want to do a lot of this, buy from the local as well, right? All kind of tools and, even materials, right? We want to work with people who can specialize in a particular material, or, equipment and so on, right? We want to build some of those tools, in-house if possible as well. So I think 2 years from now, we will be a player, man. I think, we'll be I think the OSAT, we should be in the top 5. in 2 to 3
I don't think you should aim for anything less. Okay, if anything, knowing you, Raja, and knowing Tata's, this is actually going to be in the top 1 or 2, and that's because you are just starting now. I really look forward to seeing that happen. All I can say is that it was a very profound news that Tata are getting into the semiconductor arena, and that's a major iconic brand and an iconic company. And then at the heart of this announcement is you, the man in the spotlight, the man on the high wire. And well, how does it feel to walk the knife's edge on this project? Both you, Mr. Manwani, and you. I must ask you that because you are actually right now the cynosure of all lives.
That's good and bad, huh? So the good news is, the commitment is there. Otherwise I would not have joined. As I mentioned, right? If you do just the financial returns, it won't make sense, right? You can always take that money and put it somewhere else and get better returns, right? Whether it's e-commerce or some software or something. So the decision has been made, and it is, from a Tata perspective, it is a national mission. Right? They are known for doing this, and it is a national mission in my mind, right? It is so prevalent in our daily lives and how we go about living. And I think it's the right thing, because if you look at all this climate change and all these other things, I think that 20, 30 years is going to be totally different, right? Our kids, our grandkids are going to be living totally different from how we are living today. Right? I mean, we can all see that. And a lot of it will be technology driven, right? And whenever I think about technology means what? Fundamentally, right, there is a chip, there is a building block, there is a semiconductor module, something, a system, right, that you build your software and other things on top of it. So we are getting into that fundamental. So I think the world requires us, right? We always think, we are chasing the semiconductor business, but think about it, from $400 billion, you want to go to $700 billion, right? Think about the amount of engineering, the amount of everything else you need in order to grow to that stage, right? So I think the world actually requires India to be in the semiconductor business in order to make that reality happen, right? And we're already seeing it, in the design and all that stuff, that we see. I think manufacturing, we just got to, break the ice and get it, right? So I think once we have it, I think the floodgates open.
I think the timing is just right. Mr. Manwani, you are in the spotlight as well, an entrepreneur at heart, a visionary in spirit. How do you see this particular project? What is your outlook or your vision of your project as you go ahead?
Well, personally, Ashwini, I'm very excited, to be in this line. And, we had conceived this, or at least I was toying with this idea for almost 3-4 years now. And we took the plunge last year. We started to build the factory, and the building will be complete next month. And then, we'll have all the equipment. So it's very exciting. I'm very exciting. But, I must also say, Ashwini, that I'm blessed in many ways. Friends like you who have always motivated me. I remember that, one evening when I was, having a chat with you, you encouraged me to meet somebody in ASE. So friends like you have motivated me. Of course, Raju Goyal and ELCINA fraternity, they have always motivated me. So I'm thankful to them. And more so the government. The government is definitely encouraging. The Joint Secretary personally is, always meets up and he says, how far have you reached? Do you have any problems? Do you want any support? So this is a time where, as you rightly said, the spotlight is on us. So, we have to perform. And I'm certain that, whatever challenges are there, those are for every entrepreneur in the country. As, Raja mentioned, the cost of capital, we'll have to manage that. Also, there are challenges relating to supply chain. There are no materials available. Of course, there's no wafer fab, so we'll have to depend on wafer supply from, foundries or wafer companies. But we'll have to, kind of crack that riddle or the puzzle. But the epoxies, resins, which are required for die attach, Also the wire bonding, the wires, whether it's gold wire or aluminum alloy, those are not available in the country. So, we will also have to encourage other people in the ELCINA fraternity or otherwise that they should set up plants for, making those wires or making those resins. Perhaps making those test tools or jigs and fixtures, or the programming that is required for mapping the wafer and so on and so forth. So there is a huge opportunity in this, and I'm excited. I wish I was perhaps 30-40 years younger, but I'm excited. I also have the blessing that my son is in the business with me. He's equally committed. He's just turned 40, so he has a very interesting road ahead. So that's where
you are still 16. So that is as straight as that. Would you like to share any of the challenges to your vision, and how do you plan to address it? What do you need to address it?
Well, there are specifically three. Right now, we are facing three challenges. One is, one is the cost of capital, and the Indian banking sector considers ESDM as a very high risk sector. So they are very shy of supporting the electronic industry. And semiconductor packaging, they say it's full of risks. So they are putting a lot of conditions, although we have a very large sanction available from the leading bank in the country, HDFC, but they are being very cautious when they go about funding us. So we have to overcome that challenge. And cost of capital, of course, as Raja also said, I am used to being in SEZ, I'm used to 2%. I get 1.75 plus LIBOR, which is roughly about 0.25 to 3. So I'm used to having 2% as cost of capital, and all of a sudden I'm looking at 8% cost of capital. So I have to come to terms with that. So that is one challenge. The second is, all of a sudden, when we started talking to our vendors, particularly after we got the specs approval letter 2 months ago, all the vendors are saying, well, yeah, we quoted to you about 16 weeks delivery, but right now the delivery is 40 weeks or 50 weeks. And by the way, there's a 10 to 15% price increase. So that upsets our financials. So these are the two challenges. The third challenge is the wafer supply. Honestly, particularly in memory wafer, there are very few people in the NAND flash. There are only 5 or 6 players worldwide, including the Microns, the Samsungs, the Toshibas, and Intels, and so on and so forth. Even on the other non-flash, there are about 20 to 30, and they are asking for large volume commitment. Now, to start with, that will be a challenge. Once we stabilize, once we address more and more customers, both in the OSAT model or the ATMP model, we will get there. But these are challenges, and these are not specific to me. They are challenges to every entrepreneur, and I'm sure we'll find a way to overcome this. Have we lost Ashwini again?
Yeah, I think we lost Ashwini again, and he is the one who is moderating the session. So I think so we can possibly look for some closing comments. Mr. Pankaj Gulati here, but because he was kind of mentioning that he might. Pankaj, you are there. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Ask any?
Yes, sir. Very much here.
Great,
I had to listen patiently to both my hi, sir. Hi, Raja, sir. So I was listening very patiently. Thank you, Manwani, sir. It's a wonderful experience to listen to everybody who's in this industry. We have been struggling I say we have been struggling for 50 years, but then also surviving. And right now I'm at the plant. That's why different environment, different rooms. I'm in my plant at Mohali, installing some new equipment under the specs and PLI. My question, not a question, but some information that I would like to actually address with Raja, because he's a very experienced person in this area and segment. Sir, we've been working in this segment for about 50 years, and we are into what you rightly said, we are into the niche segment. Our focus is only on the discretes, which means all the bipolar, CMOS type products. And we also had a wafer fab. We ran the fab for about 25 plus years, 30 years. So experience goes from fab to the ATMP OSAT lines. And we're doing it for ourselves. And we're also doing it for some multinationals in Europe, where we're doing some OSATs for them. They send their dice and we assemble it for them. So this is a mixed experience that we've had in the past 50 years. My problem here is that when running a production line for semiconductors, why we shut off the fab also was one of the same reasons, that everything is coming, all the raw materials, this is all imported raw material, most of it, except for small gases, some oxygen, nitrogen, everything has to be imported. So in your view, that when the Tata is going into this segment, do you have any plans to have some sort of an ecosystem also, the whole thing? Because if you also start importing lead frames, as Manwani said, epoxy, the molding compounds, the bonding wires, even a small copper bonding wire we are importing today. Even the packing tubes, anti-static packing tubes are being imported. The ESD reels are being imported. Everything is being imported. And that adds to the cost of the whole assembly. I'm sure you would have thought about it and seen about it. Are you planning to bring in some sort of an ecosystem with you also, which will help small players like us too?
No, certainly, Pankaj. You rightly said, it's a chicken and egg game, right?
Yeah.
So you need a big player, right? If you look at Malaysia, for example, right? And I worked in Malaysia for 3 years in Penang, so I'll give you an example. There is a National Semiconductor, there is TI, all these usual guys, right? They're all doing the manufacturing. In fact, a lot of the automotive parts, actually, the packaging test is done out of Malaysia. I think 60-70% of the world's automotive chips are actually packaged and tested out of Malaysia, right? So they've been there for the last 30, 40 years, right? 40, maybe even more. Now, so there's peripheral guys who come, right? So for example, the tape and reel, right? Guys in Malaysia making the tape, right? And like you said, right, the tubes, right? And by the way, they're not small companies, huh? They've grown now, right? They're making, this little bit, stuff, right? Now they are like, few $100 million, right?
Right.
I think Advantech is a $500 million.
Yeah, we buy from them. We buy from Malaysia, by the way.
It's $500 million, right? And
right.
You know how they started, right? They was just making some packing material and all that, and then now they, and then there's guys who make the frame that goes onto the test board, right? The form pack. Form pack is, I don't know what house. Maybe it's a 70, 80, 100 million,
right.
something. Right. So I think certainly if you have these, the big guy, right? Automatically, small things, because there is a chance for indigenizing and so on, right? That will come. I have no doubt in my mind, with our kind of talent, innovation, we will create those. But I think we need to do it deliberately, right? Plan it and do it, right? So I think if you as a Tata, one of the things is job creation and all the other things, right? I personally feel that it's a good practice anyway, right? To have this innovation locally and so on. So we will have an effort, right? And we are also pulling guys, right? We're pulling some Japanese guys, Korean guys, for example, making the substrates, right? We're talking to them, right? Because substrate is your start material for advanced packaging, right? So if I have a substrate manufacturing here, right, then it makes sense. So to answer your question, there is an effort. So first step, I want to set this up first, and then I'm going to hopefully bring a lot of this, and I have a lot of the ideas on this. We'll talk offline.
Wonderful.
So I think 2022 will be an exciting year, and I'm actually happy. Raju Goyal, I didn't know about ELCINA. We're such a old organization that has a lot of gems within there that working together we can develop.
Right. So
Raja, ELCINA is an association of survivors.
Yeah, really. I mean, so CDR is one of the founding members of ELCINA.
So let us call it ELCINA 2.0 and make
perfect.
And we define also the business model. For one thing, just give me a minute. Huh? See, we always think about outsourcing, right? It means, you basically do what the other fellow tells you to do, right? Right? He exactly tells you what to do. You just do it and give it back, right? It's like, cost plus, right? Something like that, right?
Right.
So, but I think, we, in this mode, right? When we move, moving forward for the next 20, 30 years, right? Even the business engagement model will be different. Right? We're not going to be just like any other OSAT, right? Our engagements with the Intels of the world, AMD will be different, right? Where we want to bring in a lot more value add and not just say, I'll just add another 10 paisa or 20 paisa to this, right?
Right.
So, because we have engineering, we have other things, right? We have a lot of other strengths, right? Which the other countries did not have, right? And these companies, all these leading companies don't want, if you look at packaging, knowledge, right, the depth and so on, is no more with those guys. Like,
Yeah.
we can get AMD business today, but AMD doesn't do the in-depth packaging development per se, right? It's done by somebody else, whether it's a TSMC or ASC and so on. So we could be those guys. So we have to work with all the little companies around in order to develop. So in my mind, right, we will develop, meaning Tata will develop, and we will use the local. And we're not just going to take someone's packaging and just duplicate it. We will duplicate it to a certain extent to build the necessary foundation, and then we'll be making our
Build
own.
on it. Right. Best wishes, sir. Thank
Raja,
you.
I have a question of you. I was talking about this, wafer supply chain. They want larger volumes. Now, of course, Pankaj may have, he's in a different domain because he's in discretes and Ratan Shah also are in silicon carbide. But when it comes to silicon wafer, do you think is it possible for us to aggregate our demand for wafer and talk with strength to these wafer suppliers that, look, we commit so much volume to you? Because right now what they say is, oh, you are talking at 1 million pieces a year. We are used to 10 million pieces a day, that kind of a thing. So maybe, as a few more OSAT companies or ATMP companies come and together with Tata's, large volume, is it possible to, aggregate the demand together and then, be able to, talk with strength with the suppliers?
No, absolutely, right? So for example, right, you take power. Take some power discretes, right? There's MOSFETs or IGBTs, they'll fit very well in, for example, the silicon carbide story, right? And if we can look at the demand for the next, moving forward, the trend in the next 5 to 10 years, right? There is significant, right? Significant, for us as well as exports, right? Whether it's the EV market or fast charging or whatever, right? The electrification and so on. So there is a huge market. So we can put all those together, right? How much would two-wheelers require, four-wheelers require, right? Today, right? Tata Motors is is not able to ship or to sell cars, because of the some of these smaller pieces actually, not the big microcontrollers. They actually have the microcontrollers. The smaller chips is where they're having problem with, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, Amrit, I think it's certainly something we need to all, put our heads together and say, okay, let's approach this as together rather than, just one guy. And let's not look at each other as competitors, right? And go after this and you say, okay, I'm going to make MOSFETs, right? So let's go after this MOSFET market, right? And then we put all this, requirements and say, okay, then we can go to like an Infineon and say, look, I want to do this, and Infineon, I think, would be happy, right, to give you wafers, because, there might be a market, or you go to a player who's not in the Indian market today, who wants to collaborate with you, right? Because, you can aggregate the market for them. So I think, we need to have a business discussion as well, right? I think this is where Raju Goyal, this could be something that you can take up, right? Because we always talk about technology and, each company doing it, right? Maybe, we can come up with, a specific, one or two things and then say, okay, how do we brainstorm and put it as a mission to go out and
Right.
have
Right.
5 years.
No, I will. I mean, I take that as a very serious suggestion, and definitely we will work on this, sir. Definitely. If there are any more comments, sir, I think we've had a wonderful discussion. Unfortunately, Ashwini had to, drop out again because of internet issues, which is unfortunate for us because he was the one who actually, initiated this, webinar with us, and he was so excited about it. Are there any more comments, or can I make some closing comments, sir? You permit, Mr.
Yeah.
Manwani, is there anything?
Raju, please go ahead. Yeah, from my side, I'm done.
Okay. I have learned a lot, from what I've heard today, really, because I don't know so much about semiconductors, but I feel, sir, I think what we are witnessing right now is that one of the reasons that we have not had, manufacturing in a big way in the country itself. I mean, if you look at our overall scenario, we are still, very low on the manufacturing index. And I think that has been also because of our mindset and the challenges that we've been facing. In India, we've largely been, historically a trading nation. So, and then the license Raj and all that. So once all that went away, I think we lost a lot of time there, and we kind of waited for things to happen. And electronics moves so fast that we haven't been able to catch up after that. Also, I feel that, for companies like, Sahasra, which are getting into this area, and even Tata's for that matter, it's like, you're entering, a residential society as the first resident, so you don't have any supply chain available. You are you are at risk and you suffer the most. So you are the one who actually, starts, attracting the supply chain, the vendors who bring the vegetables, and, your groceries and, blah, blah, whatever. So I think these are, two things which I felt, Tata's entry, I think, is extremely important, sir, very, very important, because it, creates a lot of, confidence in the community that now, okay, now the Tatas are there. And with, historically and, culturally, Tatas are known as a nationalistic, group, I would say. And you look at Air India, they've taken on Air India, which I'm sure is going to, be a tough job, even for the Tatas, but they're doing it. They've, and I think it's all for the country. So, of course, business has to be business and everybody has to make money if you want to survive. So I think, sir, this idea of cooperating and doing things together is a really wonderful thing. And, we will look forward to working with you, sir. We really appreciate, this, some of the fact, some of the points that you have suggested, and we'll definitely take it forward. With those few comments, I would like to thank all of you. I would like to thank EFY. Mukul, you've been there all the while. Thanks a lot for arranging this. And I hope, a number of people participated. We don't know how many participants were there, finally, but I hope quite a few, because we had like 800 plus registrations. So that's something good.
Sure. Raju sir, there are a couple. Raju sir, there are a couple of questions from the audience around, and there are some very good ones. So, on behalf of the Electronics for You team, as we are here to enable, knowledgeable decisions, I would like to ask these questions to gentlemen. The first question is, as an equipment supplier in APAC and Semicon, what do you think are the opportunities for us in automotive electronics and semiconductors, and keeping sensors, ECUs, or any other automotive part in mind, especially around electric vehicles? If any one of you would like to take this one.
Yeah, I can start off with, you see, electric throws opportunity and new challenges, right? So obviously, the most common one we always talk about, how quickly you can charge. So there's a lot of power related products, right? With that silicon carbide would be one of them, right? You need much higher band gaps in order to do this. So I think, there will be power related, a lot of it. A lot of it also will be a lot of sensors, right? Because again, right, you need to optimize that power, right? You're doing mobile, right? So you need to reduce the weight of the battery. So you want to optimize it so that there's zero leakage, right? So EMI, how you designed it and all those kind of things, right? So So I think there is a whole bunch of new things. And then we got all the digital displays. And then once you have digital displays, right, there's a whole bunch of other things that can go on top of it. Right? So I think, it just opens up, those kind of things in the EV market. On the automotive, right, we used to have a lot of controls for the engine control, right, to optimize the engine. Right? So there is a lot of, what we call under the hood automotives. But, I think it's going to completely change the supply chain of automotive. Right? The traditional players, right, who were there, what we call tier ones, right, the Continental, Denso, all these guys who are supplying, right. They are going to have, they're going to change quite a bit. But, as much as I know, I do, usually change happens from outside. Right? Like just like Tesla, right? Created this EV cars versus all the incumbents, right? So I also feel that now it's an opportunity for us, right, who are not in that market, who can see through it, right, and we don't have old baggage to think about. So there'll be a lot of opportunities. You can so it'll be sensors, discrete, a lot of designs that goes into the mechanical design. So you have optimum EMI. So there'll be a lot of design related. So everything will be customized, right? So for every bike, for example, we'll have a customized casing and so on. So there's a lot of those kind of work. So I do believe that the days of making one company making billions and billions of this versus I think it's going to be a lot more multiple companies customizing for each of this, right? So I think that there'll be lots of opportunities there.
Perfect. Raju sir, while there are too many questions and I don't think I'll be able to ask all of them, there's one specific question for you that I would request you to answer. The question is, what does ELCINA plan to do in terms of semiconductor fabrication and packaging in India? What are your plans?
Is it for?
Okay, that's
for Raju sir, for ELCINA.
Yeah, so I'll try to answer this. We have been trying to do a lot with people, for the component ecosystem. I'm not really sure how successful we have been. Though I don't think it is for lack of effort we've been possible. We really need to, while we should not go to the government and ask for support all the time. But the fact remains that we are working with a disadvantage here. And this is particularly true, for the semiconductor industry, which has capital investment area. The capital output ratio is low, so we really need to have a lot of support. And I think that it is a job of the government, and it's for associations like ELCINA to make sure that there are policies that are supporting the ecosystem for making semiconductors. And I would say most of all, we would need good infrastructure, because there are a lot of efficiency requirements, and I think water, electricity, even the logistics, even the movement of goods, etc., etc. So I think these are the areas where associations typically work. Now I think a few ideas have been given to us which are very important. We'll try to get the industry to cooperate more, to become part of the supply chain. I think that is enough for us to do for the moment. Thank you.
Perfect. On behalf of the
electronic... out of time, Mukta, we are out of time.
Yes.
Maybe we should close now, because we're really getting out of time.
Yes, sir. On behalf of the Electronics for You team and ELCINA team, I thank more than 300 people, professionals who joined us via Tech World Congress as well as YouTube platform. And I hand over the session for closing remarks to Mr. Goyal.
Thank you, Mukul. I think I've already made my closing remarks. We've had a lot of remarks from all of us. So we are very grateful to all the panelists, especially to Mr. Manwani, Mr. Raja Manikam, and also to Pankaj-ji. It's great to have Pankaj-ji here. I think he's possibly the most experienced man in the semiconductor field in the country today, starting in 67 or 65. Not you, but I think you've been there in the industry since maybe 1980 or still a long haul, and still toiling ahead. So look forward to a lot of success for everybody, and thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.